So as you can see, I'm not Allison Gopnik. She's out of town today, so at the expense of my own peace of mind, she asked me to give the lecture today. We're going to backtrack a little bit from what Allison talked about on Monday when she shared some very personal aspects of her own experience giving birth. And we're going to talk about some of the features of development that occur during the 9 months prior to the day where you learn what it feels like to be ketchup. And I'll apologize in advance that today will include no entertaining private anecdotes since I have very little experience being pregnant. But before we start, I have an announcement about sections. So I think you got this on B-Space, but we decided to restructure a little bit in that we won't be having section material coming the week after lecture anymore. But your quizzes will stay that way. So for sections this week, your quiz will still be on last week's lecture, but we will cover birth and prenatal development after the quiz. And then next week, your quiz will be on birth and prenatal development, and then we'll cover the material from next week's lecture. Just so you guys don't have to be quizzed on material that we haven't covered in session yet. But you should still have plenty of time to go over the material before the quiz. Okay, so are there any questions about section or anything else? Yeah? The online lectures? Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah, so I think the most recent one didn't record, so it's only audio. But I think for the most part, they'll continue to be recorded with the slides. But yeah, we don't really know how that works. I asked Allison how I set that up for today, and she said she doesn't know how it works, it just happens. So I hope that today's lecture and all the future ones will be recorded. Anything else? Okay, great. So let's get started. So you might be wondering why, in a developmental psychology class, we're spending time talking about prenatal development. So during the first week, we talked about all the many reasons why someone might choose to study development, including trying to explain behavior in adulthood by better understanding how we get there, investigating the role of a prolonged childhood from an evolutionary perspective, or you could study development to be able to use science to inform policy decisions, or simply because babies are weird, and you're curious as to why they do the things that they do. And in section last week, many of you shared some other reasons for why you're studying development. For some of you, this course is a requirement. Others of you want to become counselors or teachers or physical therapists in the future. And those are all good reasons to study development as well. So we're all coming here to learn about how babies and young children navigate the world, how they pick up on language and social norms, and how they develop unique personalities, each with a unique set of emotions and preferences, or maybe how they interact with their parents and their peers. And we will talk about all these things later in the course. It's a lot to cover, and developmental psychologists love talking about how infancy and early childhood is this period of very rapid development where humans are able to integrate so much experience into a way to approach the world for the rest of their lives. But today we're going to talk about an even earlier period, even more rapid development, which is the prenatal period. And I'll spend some time touching on a lot of research, including a lot of classic experiments that have given us lots of insight into all these processes that occur before birth. So as always, it makes sense to start with some big picture questions, which is how we can ask about the questions that we have using experiments in the context of our current theory. So as of right now, we approach the study of prenatal development from an epigenetic account. And this account was first formalized by Aristotle, and it states that new structures and functions emerge over the course of development to yield an integrated functional unit, which is the organism. And we can think of this model as a model of qualitative change. So when you look at an organism at one point in development, it might look a lot different than the way it looked 3 months prior. And we can contrast this with some older theories that are now quite outdated. For example, the preformation theory. And this is a theory that, as recently as the 17th century, it was widely believed that development begins with a tiny human that exists inside maybe a sperm cell. And this tiny human just grows in size over the course of development and then pops out as an infant 9 months later. So you can think of this as a theory of quantitative change, which is quite different from what we know to be true now. So meanwhile, while today we grapple with big questions such as how to identify very complex gene-environment interactions in development, and meanwhile, questions of other eras were sort of laughable by today's standards. So for example, there were quite a few arguments in the 17th century about whether this tiny human existed in the sperm or the egg before it started to grow into an infant. And it's not that people were stupid, they just didn't know very much. And they hadn't yet developed the tools to find out how development really works. So in some sense, it's hard to blame early theorists for coming up with these ridiculous, laughable theories when they genuinely had no means of knowing better. And I think that's an important point because even though today we're pretty confident that we know what's going on, who knows what we're going to think in another 500 years. There could very well be someone standing here talking about how stupid we were. So the moral of this story is, of course, that science ruins everything, in that it has this habit of rendering our understanding of the world completely null and void when the results of our experiments disprove our theories. But for the sake of this course, we're going to trust our current model, which is that development begins when a sperm cell meets an egg cell. And this is the first step of a long process that, again, we'll go through for the rest of the course. Although I guess it's not the first step because the sperm cell has to get to the egg cell somehow. But if you need any further clarifications on that point, you can see me after class. But in any case, these two cells each contain 1/2 of the genetic material necessary to create a human being. And this fertilized egg cell is what we call a zygote. And the zygote essentially bursts itself into the uterine wall and begins to divide into 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16, and so on. And by 3 weeks, these cells start to diversify to form some of the organ systems and other structures of the human body. And eventually, the zygote becomes an embryo. And as it continues to develop and diversify, we call it fetus. And through the rest of fetal development, it continues to grow in size and become more human-like in form and behavior. So we're taking all this for granted for now, but important to keep in mind that we're not always as right as we think we are. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the state of the science and some of the cell processes that occur during prenatal development. So as I mentioned, we have a fertilized egg cell that bursts itself into the uterine wall. And at this point, this egg is dividing about twice a day. And it looks like a hollow sphere with an inner mass of cells on the inside. And these inner cells are the cells that ultimately comprise the baby, whereas the outer cells develop into the amniotic sac and the placenta, which serve as protection and nourishment for the baby for the rest of its time in the womb. So for the next 9 months, there are 4 major cell processes at play. The first one is something I've already talked about, cell division. So this starts as quickly as 12 hours after the sperm cell fertilizes the egg cell. And each of these new cells that are the result of division contain a full set of genetic material for the baby. While this is occurring, some of the cells start to migrate. So as cells are newly formed, they travel outward from their point of origin to be in position to develop into different parts of the fetus's body. So as that's happening, the cells are also differentiating. These are what we call the stem cells, So at the beginning, the cells all look the same, but each of them has the capability of transforming into one of over 350 kinds of cells that each serve a different function in the body. So we know this from some classic experiments from Wolpert in 1991. He did these frog experiments. So the idea was that the experimenters took a cell from the eye, so the area that would ultimately develop into the frog's eye, and they transplanted the cell onto an area that would ultimately develop into the frog's abdomen. And this way you could see whether the cell would sort of assimilate and become like all the other cells around it, or if it would continue to be an eye, and the frog would just have an eye on its abdomen. And it turned out that if you do this early enough, before the cells specialize and differentiate, the cell will act as a normal abdomen cell. But if you wait too long, it will develop into an eye on the stomach of the frog, which shows that there is a certain point where cells are very flexible with their destiny. So final of these cell processes is cell death. So through the process of apoptosis, some of these cells are just programmed to die. And you can think of these as sort of scaffolding cells for the baby during development. And a good example is sort of the webbed bridges between our fingers and toes. And this is a common example of something that can go, or if this part doesn't happen, you can be born with webbed feet or webbed toes. And it's not the worst of the defects we'll speak about today, but it's a good example. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me fairly Daigo transfer style? Can you tell me exactly is cell migration?
What is cell migration?
Yes, where does the cell go from?
So I'll talk about this in a minute, but all the cells originate sort of in the area that ultimately becomes the brain, and then they travel out to different parts of this zygote that doesn't quite have a human form yet. But the point is, all the cells are dividing, and they kind of spread out so that they're in place when they're ready to differentiate.
And can you tell me the scientific word for cell death?
Apoptosis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and as I said, many of these processes are concurrent, so these aren't. This isn't a process that occurs one at a time. So cell division obviously is happening throughout development, whereas other ones like cell differentiation stop when an endpoint is reached. So we have this inner mass of cells that's going to turn into the baby. And you can think of it as having three layers, in the same way that the Earth has layers. So there's a top layer, and this is the outermost layer of the mass, and this contains what ultimately becomes the nervous system, things like the hair and nails, and the outer skin. The middle layer ultimately becomes the muscular system, your bones, the circulatory system, and the inner layers of the skin. And the centermost layer ultimately develops into the digestive system, the lungs, the urinary tract, and some glands throughout the body. So I wanted to touch a little bit on maybe the piece that's most relevant for our course, which is neural tube formation. And here you can see a cross-sectional view of what's happening in this outermost top layer of the zygote. So you can think of this as the surface of the mass in the top left, and the process begins by a little dip forming. This is called the neural groove, and the two crest points on the outside gradually move together, and when they meet in the center, they fuse to form a tube, and this tube develops into the spinal cord. And so at one end of it, the cells continue to divide and multiply, and that becomes the brain. And this process is pretty standard throughout vertebrate species, not just humans. And this is one of the very many sensitive processes in development, because if the tube is not fully fused, baby will be born with spina bifida, which is essentially at some point down the spine, the tube is still open and it's still kind of an unfused tube, and this results in paralyzation and numerous other abnormalities, which can be more or less severe depending on how far up the spine the fusing stops, essentially. And yeah, so all this happens on a scale of cephalocaudal development, which is what I mentioned at the beginning. All the cells or the brain and the cells surrounding the brain and the central nervous system are among the first to develop, and other cells throughout the body sort of happen downstream from that. So parts that are closer to the head develop sooner than parts that are further away from the head. So the legs and feet are among the last to develop. Yep.
So you were mentioning earlier about the spinal cord not fully closing. That's also on the spinal bifida, right?
Yes, spina bifida. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we still don't know a lot about, but it's been shown to be affected by poor nutrition in the mother, among many other things. Yeah.
Could you just repeat what the inner layer was?
Yeah, so the inner layer develops into the digestive system, the lungs, the urinary tract, and glands, generally. That's the third layer. There are three layers.
What was the middle layer?
The middle one, it develops into muscles, bones, things like that. What else? Circulatory system. Okay. So let's take our first explanation break. So I guess we can really start from the outside in and take 3 to 5 minutes to explain to the person next to you about how our current big picture view differs from historical perspectives, and touch on the 4 cell processes that are at play as the fertilized egg develops into a fetus. Okay, let's come back. Okay, so I covered briefly some of the early biology of the developing baby, but I wanted to point out that you shouldn't worry too much about the details here, because what we're going to do in sections is we just talk more about some of the finer details in the biology of these early developmental processes. So you can look forward to that. So I'll move on now to talk about some of the aspects of fetal experience. And as a takeaway point, you can think of this as babies doing much more than just kicking. So through a series of studies, DeVries in 1982 pointed out that there are 16 distinct movements that appear in the embryo by 7 weeks. So the earliest of which pop up by 7 weeks. And these are movements that closely mimic the movements of newborn infants. So some of the earliest that appear are reflex-type movements, such as the bending of the head and the neck, and also hiccups, which are equally misunderstood, or equally not understood in embryos as they are in adult humans. And after these sort of movements pop up, by 12 weeks you start to see flexing of newly formed fingers and toes, some movements of the developing eyes, and even some things that look like yawning. And by 20 weeks, these behaviors are very close to those of newborns, including thumb sucking, swallowing, and even breathing. So it's almost as if the baby's rehearsing to be out in the world by 20 weeks. And some of these movements inside the womb are thought to encourage the development of the palate, for example. This could be why babies are swallowing, even though they're not, even though they're just constantly taking in some of the amniotic fluid. These are thought to promote healthy palate development. Yeah. So the breathing in the fluid, the amniotic fluid. Yeah. Okay. Another feature of fetal movement is that there is a lot of evidence for prenatal to postnatal continuity. So through a series of studies by DiPietro in about 10 to 15 years ago, they found that infants who are more active movers in general in the womb turn out to be more active infants, and also that fetuses in the womb that are more regular sleepers turn out to be more regular sleepers as babies after they're born. So some of these features might be closely tied to the individual baby. And we also know that during the early stages, where in the embryonic stage, movement is almost constant. So the baby's constantly moving, even though the mothers don't report feeling much movement at this time. The movement is very constant early on, and then it starts to become more and more intermittent. So during the later stages of pregnancy, the baby is mostly stationary and is only moving about 10 to 30% of the time right before it's born. So we can also talk about some of the sensory development of the baby while still inside the womb. And sight is one that is presumably negligible, even though there's evidence that if you shine a flashlight on the outside of a mother's womb, it's probably detectable from the inside. There isn't really much to see, so there isn't really much to think about in that sense. But we have lots of evidence that babies are able to, they have a sense of touch, because we see lots of touching of the face, sucking of the thumb, grasping of the umbilical cord, all of which require a sense of where your hands are and what you're grabbing onto. We have evidence for a developing sense of taste. So in some very old studies by Desnu, experimenters studied two groups of pregnant women. So for all of the women, the experimenters injected a fluid into the amniotic sac of the baby. And one of the groups had a fluid that included saccharin, and the other group just had a placebo injection. But both of these injections contained a dye that would show up as the mother passed the liquid through her own urination. So the idea was that if the baby likes the sweet taste of this fluid, the baby would drink more of the fluid from the amniotic sac and then pass it through to the placenta, and then in turn the mother would pass it out through her own urine. But if the babies didn't like the fluid any more than the regular amniotic fluid, it would just stay in the sac. And it turned out that the mothers who got the injection with saccharin had urine that was more tinted than the mothers who had the placebo dye, which led the researchers to conclude that fetuses drank more of the fluid if it was sweet, and therefore that they were able to taste, and they liked the sweet taste of the fluid. There's also evidence that prenatal experience can play a role in postnatal preferences. So in another series of studies by Minella et al., pregnant women during their last 3 weeks of pregnancy were given carrot juice to drink 4 times a week. And that was it. And then after the infants were born, they were tested at 5.5 months of age, which is a long time after birth. And the experimenters fed the babies 2 types of cereal. One group of babies had cereal that was prepared normally, and the other group had cereal that was prepared with carrot juice. And sure enough, the babies whose mothers had drank carrot juice during the last 3 weeks of pregnancy reacted more favorably to the cereal made with carrot juice than did the babies whose mothers didn't drink carrot juice 4 times a week. So this indicates that the babies might have been able to develop a preference for the carrot flavor prenatally and maintain that preference well into infancy. There's also some evidence that babies might have a sense of smell while they're still inside the womb, because amniotic fluid is known to take on odors from the mother's diet. And so, for example, a mother has a diet rich in curry, the baby could be developing a preference for curry. And this has been shown by experiments where you can place a newborn baby next to 2 sponges, and if in one sponge will contain some amniotic fluid from the baby's own mother, and the other will contain someone else's amniotic fluid, and the baby seems to turn more towards the one that comes from their own mother, which indicates that they're able to smell it and recognize the smell as being familiar. So not only do they recognize it, but they prefer it. There's also a body of evidence showing that babies can hear what's going on outside the womb, with studies showing that they prefer hearing their own native language over foreign languages, and also that they prefer hearing their own mother's voice, which is presumably very salient over other female voices.